since morning 8 o'clock to up to 4, even 5 o'clock. We had nearly 100 plus interactions or the meetings that we hosted, both in Congress as well as in the Senate. We met, for example, Senator Cindy Hyde, met like Congressman Tom Moore, many also elected officials, their staffers, like Jimmy Penata, and from all over USA, 150 plus delegates from 25 different states participated. So the idea is that we get a team of say 5 to 7 delegates from a state. They meet their elected officials and other elected officials from the state to explain the issues that are important from Indo-American perspective. In Congress, there are a lot of bills and resolutions get introduced, almost 300 bills and resolutions it gets. And many times there are, most of Indian Americans are also not aware about many of them. Forget about their impact unless someone reports it. So FIIDS as a policy institute keeps on monitoring various resolutions, bills introduced. We also monitor works of think tanks. What are the positionings are there on various issues are there. We also engage think tanks on a regular basis, having the round tables, and come up with the position that from Indian American perspective, that what are the issues important to us. Annually, during the Capitol Hill, we compile various bills are there, the resolutions are there in Congress or Senate, which are important from our perspective. So this year, we identified around 38 resolutions which are one way or another connected or of our interest. We grouped them together. Out of them, we needed to prioritize, because when we meet two elected officials, this meeting is 30 minutes, so we have to explain them what are our top priorities are there. Then we select the 5 of them. Out of all this, we clustered into 8 different topics and then selected 5 topics of our interest. And during the day, we discuss those issues and give our positioning. It starts with Indo-Pacific region. The supply chain is very important. It as one of the population, 1/3 of GDP, 11 trillion of the trade flows through the Indo-Pacific region, and most importantly, a semiconductor industry, all the high-tech industry also heavily depends on the goods or semiconductor chips manufactured in the region. So safety security of that region is very important. At the same time, concern is always there that Chinese expansionist, Chinese Communist Party's expansionist agenda has been always the issue or the danger from US point of view. So we identified some of the issues related to that and discussed that. They are wide ranging. They are ranging even the issues of subsea cables. You know that the internet cables go from intercontinent and they go under the water. So there is a danger they can be cut off. There are ships that are built which can cut off that. The modern warfare are not just into the Indo-Pacific in the maritime, but it also space. So there need to be a special focus into space operability, interoperability and coverage into that region. So there are some issues that we raised around that. Of course, strengthening Quad from security framework point of view as well as trade point of view. So those are the things that we discussed. Lot of elected officials are very much aware about the dangers and interested to work on those. So that is a very positive and encouraging thing. We also discussed today is that US-India partnership, which is one of the most important, last year also what we observed and this year, there is a bipartisan agreement that this is the one of the most consequential relationship in this century. Understand that India is rising. India is a defense point of view, from economy point of view, is rising to the third largest economy. But most importantly, from value point of view, in international work, there is a commonalities there. There are both the democracies, a lot of things they can deliver and give to the world. So there is a good bipartisan agreement is over there. However, we also understand there is a lot of issues that needs to be tackled or addressed. And one of that is could be export control, defense related. So we discuss issues like, say, the defense partnership, then relaxing some restrictions that were there. Or it could be the technology related partnership. So those are the important discussion we could engage in. Again, it's a very positive encouragement in there. Of course, there are some few people are still discussing or have think that when this trade agreement will get finalized, it will be smoothening. This little bit friction might be there in the system. So that also feedback we heard. Of course, those are the things are beyond our thing, but we getting the feedback that there is a genuine interest from both elected officials that this relationship can be a very positive on the long term for the world point of view. And then it comes to the welcome Deputy Assistant Secretary Bethany. So I'm just outlining what we did today in the whole day. So about 150 delegates from 25 different states. The whole day we met about 100 elected officials, and we had men, women, young youths, very vibrant atmosphere. But we systematically had the discussion. 30 minutes is discussion is 5 categories. We started with supply chain resiliency in Indo-Pacific region. We discussed about Indo-US relations. We also discussed about critical minerals, the importance of the critical minerals, because it is 80% of the critical minerals are controlled by resources and everything by China. And it has the huge impact on technology, defense, space for the world, but most importantly from US point of view. So there is a lot of initiatives there. Track Silica is there, that President Trump and administration have invested heavily, almost like a 10 billion into that. Also brought the framework of Track Silica, bringing different countries together. However, our interest was that the Congress has a bill, both Senate and House, which actually predates to Track Silica, and it is kind of framework for Track Silica, but that needs to be codified. So it is, once it's codified, then it remains there beyond the administration. So it gives a consistency, the long-term framework. And so we had the good discussion over there. In fact, critical minerals, 2 years back, we had first time raised it. When we raised it that time, most of the elected officials were not much more aware about this. But then from last year, the trade friction, all that thing, it started, and this year, 8 different bills or different forms are there in the Congress. So we had a good discussion on that, but there is a lot of progress needs to be done. In case of supply chain, we also this year discussed IMEC, the importance of the IMEC, which is the India Middle East corridor. And there is a one resolution over there to establish a strategic framework around that. Of course, Middle East friction may little bit impact those things. And then we finally went into 2 domestic topics of Indian American interest. One is the reforming legal immigration, and another thing that Indian American, as you know, that 1% of Indian American are there in here. They contribute to 5% of the taxes. If you look at from businesses point of view, hotel industry, 60% of hotel motel are owned by Indians. Around 10% of physicians are Indian background. in the technology, there's a 1 in 4 startup Indian technology professional is there, who's a founder. Patents are also almost like say 10-15% patent are actually filed in the huge Silicon Valley. I'm coming from Silicon Valley. The engine is Indian technology professional, but we saw some rising anti-Indian, what New York Times call it as the H1 racism, and then also some of the bias. So we also surfaced that it is not to a degree that it's really a problem in a day-to-day, but signs are not positive, so we needed to create the awareness about that. And then finally we discussed about the H1B related some of the frictions, particularly visa appointment delays are happening, which has caused companies like Microsoft, IBM, and etc. to give the recommendation to H1Bs not to travel, particularly if their visa is around the expiry and they need a stamping and all that. So we discussed why this issue. We had a good discussion, lot of positive feedbacks, some feedbacks, so we'll be doing follow-up. So on this background, I just wanted to conclude that this is one of the very successful Capitol Hill Day that we hosted. And today, since in the beginning of the day, because there is a voting going on, so 6:30 to 7:15 there is a voting going on. So almost there was a rush of the elected officials starting from, the program was supposed to start at 6 o'clock. So 10 minutes before that, we had Senator Roger Marshall, and then like Brad Sherman and others, they kind of were lined up into, so where because the voting is going on. So that's we are very happy to see all the elected officials coming up. So now we have fortunate to have Ambassador Kampaji, and also Deputy Assistant Secretary Bethany, and I would like to invite Deputy Assistant Secretary Bethany to address.